Welcome to Mudville, podcast about baseball and cinema. I'm Brody Staub.
I'm Nolan Rabine.
We hope you enjoy.
Okay, we're here. Wow, that was a loud one.
That was a professional burp.
I think I'm gonna put that right at the very start, so it's
Probably
gonna
should.
like fade out from the intro, and it's gonna go.
It's better than the clap slate.
I'm not gonna actually do that.
No, you should.
Maybe I should. It's Mudville. We're back. What's today? August.
We have
15th?
returned.
August 15th. Yeah, we're
August
halfway
15th.
through the month. It's fantasy baseball trade season, and oh man, have I been in the thick of it tonight?
Yeah, you mentioned I walked out of my room and you threw up the fact that you have been active at the deadline. So what'd you do?
So I'm in a few different dynasty leagues, and both of them we have our trade deadline this week. But we replaced a couple of inactive teams that had been at the very bottom of the league that had just been like racking up losses.
That happens
like
in every fantasy baseball league.
Well, it happens and like dynasty especially, because like you have teams that as they realize they aren't going to compete, they sell off their players to the teams that are. Those teams trade their prospects.
Yeah, sounds like baseball.
Yeah, and it's like it's certainly like strategy for both teams, but you know, on an individual season basis, it definitely leads to a lot of top heavy teams and a lot of very bottom heavy teams. And in this league in particular, we had three teams.
Sounds like baseball.
That were like a combined 5-50 or something absurd, and it had just led to like every other team in the league being part of the playoff picture.
Right.
And so this week we just replaced two of those inactive guys. Those teams that had been inactive had not been trading veterans, had not been making any moves like picking up any prospects or whatever like you would hope that they joined, and we had a couple of big trades go down that have really just opened up the floodgates. And this is a full dynasty league. It's 14 teams. We have really deep rosters, so we've been seeing some super complex trades going down. I'm doing really like interesting thing at the deadline. I'm doing like a buy sell at the same time. Just tonight, even in the span of like an hour, I traded away Scherzer for a package centered around Taj Bradley and Colson Montgomery to get back some picks, which I was super excited about. But I was like, oh, I just lost a lot of like immediate pitching value. And so then I went out and I made two more trades, and I acquired Aaron Nola, Jordan Montgomery, and Sonny Gray. So I'm the...
Who are you, the Yankees? Good God.
Well, if I was, they would all need surgery immediately. But yeah, I'm the reigning champion in that league.
You'd have to roster Dr. Elatrosh.
Yeah, I'm feeling a lot better now about my team. You know, I've got a very strong core in there. I've got Shohei, of course, then Jordan, Witt. I had
bad.
Alleged.
Which Witt, Merrifield or Junior?
Why would I have Witt Merrifield?
I don't know. You threw him in there.
Why would I highlight
It's his
him
name.
if I
It's his
rostered him?
name.
It'd be like, oh yeah, man, my team is stacked. We got
The
David
Witt you're
Fletcher.
Ryan McMahon coming in hot. If you were going to have Witt, I think you would have to say Witt Jr. Like, I don't think he's like Witt. You don't call him Witt.
Yeah,
like,
well,
that's not,
I had to move Bobby Witt just this week from third base to short.
He's a full name guy.
There's like
Bobby
Witt.
He's like he's Bobby Witt.
Well, his father
Witt
was
Jr.
also Bobby Witt. So
but he's actually Bobby Witt. That's why I'm saying, like, you'd say like Witt Jr. or like Bobby. Like you would say Bobby. I don't know.
I like just Bobby Witt
thing.
Jr. for him being able to. Yeah, no, I get that.
BWJ.
But yeah,
those are terrible initials.
Awful initials. Yeah, no, he's
no JBJ.
I hear that and I think George W. Bush. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm not trying to trade for Dick Cheney, but I had to move Witt this week from third base to short because my starting shortstop is an alleged friend of Epstein. Not going to talk about that too much on the pod until we have more information about it. But and I also traded last night for Manny Machado.
Those are not the allegations, but they're like,
we will
that aren't
certainly
familiar.
talk about what's been going on with Wander Franco from the Rays, but it's an active investigation. I don't want to say anything that isn't true, say anything foolish. Isn't looking good for him.
No.
Looks like
no, it looks bad actually.
It looks quite bad.
It looks not
good. But so that didn't help my team, but I
There are
did make a couple
allegations,
moves so that
yeah.
not even going to blink, just we got to make a got to make a full throttle approach for back-to-back titles. But
fair
that's
enough.
been my week. What have you been up to?
Okay, so I was in Woodstock this weekend. It's kind of it. I haven't been doing much.
Doing
other
some
than that.
acid.
But
I don't associate much with Woodstock.
Woodstock is like
Jimi
acid or
Hendrix.
weed. I did not do any drugs in Woodstock. I don't
say,
do many
can you
drugs
see?
anymore in general. I was in Woodstock. There were everybody that we met was definitely either on acid or was high.
Nice.
High on something. Everyone was definitely high on something. But it was quite the time. It was a good time. It is, if you heard that there is a town full of 60, 70-year-old hippies, it's exactly what you want. Like there was it's what you want it to be, knowing that. Like there was we went out to go see my mom's friend has her husband has a band. He's an insane guitar player. It was really fun. And then the crowd that we were with, there were people just like rolling in from the street, and it's just like all these old hippies, like really, really long silvery hair, long beards, headbands, exactly what you're expecting, or at least what you would have expected in the 60s. But these are all people who like smoked weed once when they were like 14 in 1969, and then like made it their whole personality for 60 years. Again, it's exactly what you would want.
Permanent deadheads.
And, yeah, exactly. And so there was this one guy that I will never forget him until the day I die. He was like, he had this really long white beard, this like kind of gross hair, like a blue headband, and these really thick, giant like 90s glasses. And he was wearing a one-piece t-shirt. and he was fucking cutting it up. He got up there and started dancing. Like all these people were dancing, by the way. And at one point, Bryce like leans over to me and she goes, "Why does this look like the Peanuts Christmas special?" It really did.
Oh, man.
It really did. They had some moves, but there was this one guy who was doing this like. Okay, so he was wearing a black sweater. And he's bald. He looks like I don't know, like picture in your head like a retired cop who calls into WFAN.
Just every Yankee fan. Okay.
Like 5'8", bald goatee,
yeah.
kind of fat, but clearly has seen a lot. He looked kind of
Brett
a
Gardner
little bit like
plus
Billy
like
Joel.
160 pounds.
No, he looks like Billy Joel now.
Oh, okay.
It's like this guy. He was the highest man I have ever seen in my life, and that's really saying something living in the city. I mean, you see some true characters.
You see a lot of things.
You see a lot of things.
You get exposed to a vast array of humanity.
You get a sampling platter of what we as humans have to offer. Mm-hmm. Some good, some bad.
What we bring to the table, some might say.
Yes, yeah. This guy, I swear to God, he's the highest person I've ever seen in my life. He gets up and he starts dancing, and he's doing this like really slow, like bird flapping motion, and the music, by the way, is like upbeat, like it's 70s rock music or whatever, and he's just completely like not in time, just doing this like really slow, like up down, like bird flapping, and then he starts doing these like weird hand motions. He's like swirling his wrists, and he's like. It's all the energy is moving from his heart to the tips of his fingers in slow motion. And then at one point he got stuck in a pose that he had like struck while dancing. Like he does this, like he brings his knees in together a little bit, and then he like throws his arms like over his head a little bit. Like they're kind of like a little bit like Thriller, but like only one was up and the other one was coming from the bottom.
Sure.
And
Thrill.
He got stuck. I swear, like he just like was not able to move anymore, and this guy tried to he had to get around him. We were in the front of this area, by the way, and there was like where we were and the stage. There was like 8 feet maybe, and all these people were dancing in that 8 feet section. So we were like right next to all of this happening, and this guy, he's right in front of us, and he gets stuck, and somebody was trying to get by him, and. He was waiting for him to move, and he didn't realize that our buddy was stuck. So he was just kind of looking at him, and then I think he realized eventually that he was just not gonna move. So he had to sidle by him while this man who's in another dimension was just trying to refocus and re-enter reality. Oh my god!
It sounds
really
like
funny.
it sounds like you had a weekend full of like physical comedy.
Oh my god! It was really
slapstick.
We had a
level.
great time, but it was. There was also this really really old man who was definitely like in his prime in 1955, and he got up on the dance floor. I shit you not. He leans his cane on the wall, gets up on the dance floor, and does this insane like jig where he's like moving so fast, and then like they made a circle around him, like watching him and clapping. And then after he finishes his like dance routine, like it was like I can picture it in my head like a movie where they all like somebody's like doing the whole like dancing thing. It's what movie is that where there's like you know what it is? You know what I'm picturing in my head now? It's you know that scene in La La Land when Emma Stone is like they're cutting back and forth between Ryan Gosling playing piano and Emma Stone dancing and everybody around her like clapping and shit.
Yeah.
The moves that she's doing, it reminded me of that, except he's like 85. And then he finishes this, they all like applaud. He gives a bow, and then he walks back over to the wall very slowly and grabs his cane, and then like just continues like very calmly and like politely watching the show. It's like, what is happening in this town? This place is crazy.
I feel like every week
fun.
You've been up to more like ludicrous shit than the week before.
I was just saying, people are gonna think I'm making shit up. I swear to God, this happened.
Last week you were hanging out with a kid who likes Das Boot. This week you were watching a bunch of dancing octogenarian hippies.
Yes, exactly. That's just life in Woodstock.
You're bringing us content.
This
man.
is what we. This is why I do it. I go out thinking this should be good for the pod.
Post trade deadline. The movies all came out last month. We got another couple of weeks until the playoff race really heats up.
Yep.
You're giving us content with these
meantime,
old dancing hippies. I
Need
love
some
it.
juice, and it seems like I'm making it up or like it's not true. I promise. Go to Woodstock. Go to a band, any band playing, and you will probably see the same guys. It's just like it's what they do up there. There's, I guess, you know, that's why they moved there. They like the music and shit. Also, walking around town, there's just like people playing guitars, and like it's a nice place. It's beautiful too. I mean, it's like this gorgeous little town and like nestled in mountains.
This episode is brought to you by the town of Woodstock, New York.
Worth
I went there
seeing.
once when I was like 10, but I don't remember it very much.
Go see it. Good
You know,
shopping.
if,
Good music.
Some of the folks aren't quite as familiar. We are Mudville. We are a podcast about all things
Should
sports,
we have done an
space.
intro?
No, I think we did. But you know, the reason that I wanted to point this out is that one of the things that we are invested in and interested in on this podcast is the art of film criticism.
Sure.
It's something that's become very important to me in particular over the past few years, and it's something that
A lot of people do it. Some
people
do it well.
Yeah. You know, I'm interested in film criticism. I would like to do it myself eventually, but according to the New York Times, maybe I don't have to because a bunch of people on TikTok have got it covered. I'm going to read this article today that was published in the aforementioned New York Times. The headline is, "They review movies on TikTok, but don't call them critics."
Oh, okay. So what do we call them?
And then the subheader here, on MovieTok, reviewers can reach an audience of millions and earn tens of thousands of dollars per post. This article highlights a number of different content creators on TikTok, none of whom I necessarily really want to highlight because I don't think that they are necessarily the problem with what's been going on. This gets into something really troubling here, and I think just the energy of this article is just pretty foul, and I had to read it, so you all have
now
to
we
hear
have
it.
to hear about it. Yeah.
So here we go. It starts by talking about this girl who has 3 million followers on TikTok and goes by Maddie Moo.
Okay.
She's a senior at Virginia Tech and is sometimes paid by film companies to promote their work. Says she makes videos to connect people and to spare them the pain of arguing over finding a movie or not knowing what you're really looking for.
So stupid.
But one title that she would never use might be the most obvious. Critic. I just don't see myself in that light. Saying she is sometimes paid by film companies to promote their work, that disqualifies her from being a
immediately. You no longer have anything valuable to say. This article should be, this is a corporate shill.
Yes, essentially. Coke, 22, is among dozens of personality.
Her last name is Koch.
Yeah.
Koch.
Yeah, like the brothers.
Is she a niece?
I hope not. Koch, 22, is among dozens of personalities on TikTok, along with peers like Straw Hat Goofy and Cinema Joe.
Excuse me.
Who reach millions of people by reviewing, analyzing, and promoting movies. Several earn enough on the platform from posts sponsored by Hollywood studios. In parentheses here, many have taken a break from working with them since the actors' strike, then through one of TikTok's revenue-sharing platforms, or both, to make their passion for film a full-time job, a feat amongst long-standing cuts to arts critics' positions in newsrooms. But the new school of film critic doesn't see much of itself in the old one. Rendering judgments or making claims that go beyond one's personal tastes are now considered antiquated and objectionable. When you read a critic's review, it almost sounds like a computer wrote it, said Cameron Kozak, 21, who calls himself a movie reviewer and has 1.5 million followers. But when you have someone on TikTok who you watch every day and you know their voice and what they like, there's something personal that people can connect to.
Okay, so we're just exploiting parasocial relationships.
I feel like there are just so many different layers to this, because it's like these people spawned from a sort of generation of online critic who were on like blogs during the 2000s and were like petitioning for
Remember blogs?
The Dark Knight to be considered like the #1 movie of all time or whatever.
Yeah, they got their wish.
No, yeah, they did. They got their wish, and it turned the next 15 years of Hollywood movie making into watered down superhero schlock. And
That's
so now you have
word schlock.
Schlock, yeah.
Big fan.
Oh,
is that even a word, or did
it
you
is?
come up with
Yeah,
that?
I didn't know
like
it's a word. I didn't come up with it.
All right, it's good stuff.
Mm-hmm. On MovieTok, as the community is known, the most successful users generally post at least once per day, with videos typically ranging between 30 and 90 seconds. Many attempt to capture the viewer's attention within the first 3 seconds. This movie's perfect for you if you never want to sleep again, begins Koch's review of the hit horror film Barbarian. And I just want to note, I agree with that. Barbarian's a good movie, and I think that is a good use of the platform, is to use that as sort of a 90-second promo for a really good movie. If you have a bunch of followers on social media promoting it to them and expanding
it has to be advertised
to that movie, that is good. That is a good thing. That is a healthy use of your platform, and that is TikTok, social media being utilized correctly.
I think it has to be like demarcated as an advertisement. Anyway, go on.
Well, the problem is that these people are trying to blur the lines between what is a movie review and what is sponsored content.
Right.
If this person is really particularly passionate about Barbarian and they were like really excited about making a video of it, how are you going to then differentiate that from the videos that she's being paid by Disney or whatever to promote their new
Sound of Freedom
show.
Is my favorite new movie.
Many creators, most in their 20s or early 30s, specialize within a particular niche. Joe Aragon, Cinema Joe, 931,000 followers, is known for his...
Less than 1 million is getting an article written about him? Jeez.
Is known for his breakdowns of coming attractions. Mons Gutierrez and Brian Lucius demystify and rank horror films. Seth Mullen-Furrows leans toward art house and foreign cinema. Again, that's great.
Sure. We like that.
That's
good.
Appealing to film goers amongst numerous genres. TikTok's user base is like super young. So pointing kids towards cinema is great. It also comes with a lot of responsibility, though, to because you're certainly shaping the minds of young moviegoers and audiences as well, because they haven't been given the resources to engage with art intellectually in a way that is anything more than just base entertainment.
Right.
In a lot of cases.
I feel like a lot of kids now are going to have to learn or how to spot anything that's sponsored, because everything is made to siphon off their money, and I don't think that they are fully aware of that at a young age when, nobody is when you're that young. So, like, it's, you have to, can turn into a whole other conversation, but media literacy in general is really important, especially in this country when everything is being paid to be put into your view, put into your vision, where there's somebody who's trying to make sure that their brand is getting into your face. And when kids are really young, I mean, that's like, look, when we were young, I'm sure we had a lot of, shitty advertising practices.
Oh,
that
we were
exposed to.
always being sold things too.
Yeah, we watched Nickelodeon
over and
when we were
over.
little. Like, I mean, all those like toys and shit that literally were like, like Floam, like all the micro beats.
Floam,
I still remember.
Floam, yeah.
Like, that shit was actually like dangerous for children, but I wanted it so goddamn badly. Those were commercials.
Yeah.
In between the show that you're watching, when you're like, okay, this is the part where they sell me stuff, and now here comes the show again, and like, when it's so. I mean, integrated and that's what they want. They want the integration with the media, so that, like, with the media that the people are watching, so that it's not designated advertisement time. It blends together, and that's like what their goal is. So that, it's like that's what they want, and that's really, really bad.
I can actually remember specific like commercial jingles, like for cereal boxes from when we were 7 or 8 or whatever, because they had these companies, these advertising departments that knew how to stick that shit into kids' heads, and that obviously has only gotten worse over the past, it's gotten worse over the past 15 years, but it's gotten even exponentially worse, even that over the past 5.
But again,
with
that's
the
fine
revolution of TikTok. And one of the reasons that I prefer film to television just as a medium is that it isn't being constantly interrupted by spots for ads, and there isn't.
They exist as what product placement is, but
well, yeah, but it's very different from like commercial breaks every 5 minutes. Right. There is an incentive for the writers and the filmmakers to draw out the story and leave you on cliffhanger, so you come back for the next episode and the next episode and then the next season, and then seasons go on to try to enhance profits and then by the end the show that you love is just a pile of trash. It happened with the Walking Dead is the number one example I can think of.
Lost.
I think we're going to see it too with some of these like Mattel toy movies
the next thing
that are coming in. Like they're trying to force the idea that a movie can also be an advertisement and still provide some sort of cinematic relevance or art, and
real quick, this is on a similar vein, but we are currently watching the Rangers-Angels game as we talk. It's on in the background. There are 3 ads behind home plate going left to right. One of them is Lockheed Martin. The middle one is Globe Life Field, which is the field that the Rangers play on, but that's, I'm sure, an insurance company or whatever Globe Life is. And the one on the right is a casino. It's just like there's no escape from things that you like being used to sell you shit. Even though one of them, again, Lockheed Martin, why are they even advertising?
Yeah, like what am I going to do? How am I going to go support them?
What is that about? Like, what is that for?
Even as we record this podcast, we are being sold
missiles,
military and industrial complex,
short-range heat-seeking missiles,
casino, and the stadium where we're currently watching a game.
Right. Which is also brought to you most likely by, again, an insurance company, I'd have to assume.
The space that was being occupied by people like Roger Ebert and Gene Siskel, people who were public figures that were also film critics, their place and their space in the public mind is now being occupied by TikTokers who are being paid by corporations to promote products. That is one of the leading factors in the death of art as a whole. And it's something that needs to be fought against tooth and nail at all points. The people who make our movies in some way shape our minds and shape the way that we think and shape our behavior.
Makes you question things in a way that, and that phrase is now being co-opted by the right and question what you hear is don't get vaccinated or, whatever. Or a fucking 18-year-old athlete has a heart problem. They're like, it's clearly the vaccine.
Yeah.
It's like, question it. Don't you question things? No. And even the New York Times, by the way, this is a Times article, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's time for everybody to give up on the New York Times.
Yeah,
they've
they're
been writing
done.
articles like your landlord is actually your best friend and you should tip them. It's like, it's like,
Should trans people die?
Yeah,
We
like,
asked
all right.
both sides of the question.
yeah, we ask a trans woman and also Jimmy from Arkansas.
I'm going to keep going here with the article because this is where it gets really depressing. They say,
Oh, it gets worse.
MovieTok creators are not the first in the history of film criticism to rebel against their elders. In the 1950s, Francois Truffaut, Jean-Luc Godard, and other writers of the journal Cahiers du Cinéma disavowed the nationalism of mainstream French criticism. In the 1960s and 70s, the New York critic Pauline Kael assailed the moralism associated with Bosley Crowther, a longtime movie critic of the New York Times, and others. And movie bloggers in the 2000s charged print critics with the indifference or hostility to superhero and fantasy films. Already in this framing lies a massive issue, which is that you are equating Francois Truffaut, Jean-Luc Godard, the people who made the 400 Blows and Breathless and developed the auteur
Breathless is
theory,
fucking great.
and who took their love of Hollywood cinema and what like John Ford and Howard Hawks and Alfred Hitchcock were doing, Pauline Kael and all of these other people who just redefined what film criticism could be, comparing them to movie bloggers in the 2000s who helped usher in this era of superhero everything. That is just immediately wrong. That is separation between people who want to engage with cinema as an art form and people who see it solely as entertainment, and who again led to this new generation of people who are now on TikTok being paid to promote like Disney shows. The fact that the New York Times compared these people to a bunch of quirky dipshits who think everybody was too hard on Shazam, Fury of the Gods, is fucking embarrassing.
It should be obvious to anybody who has even like a modicum of awareness of how these production companies work, or not even just production companies, just how any corporation in this country works, is like they want your attention and they pay a shit ton to get it. So anything where you regularly pay attention, they will find a way to weave their way into it. That's why sports is so ingrained with, all of these advertisements, and not just, not just weird brands, but especially betting. Cause that's like, I'm assuming they get a giant fucking cut at the end of the season or during of, all the money that people lose betting. And that's not, you can't fucking watch a game in any sport without seeing a million things from like sports books, and it's just all very gross, and it's all very depressing, and it's getting very difficult to find anything where it's not being completely fucking corrupted by money. Except here. And this episode is brought to you by Lockheed Martin.
I'm close to being done with this article here, but I did want to highlight just two more paragraphs. I think
do you need a new laser-guided missile? Anyway, go on.
I think in an article full of damning sentences, this contains some of the worst of them here. This is talking about a different guy, one of these other YouTube creators. 7 years ago, Green started a movie-themed channel on YouTube, which favors long, more produced videos, but abandoned it after the birth of his first child. On TikTok, he found that he could reach an enormous audience with relatively little effort. He said one of his first videos on the platform, a post from January 2020 about Tom Holland in Avengers Endgame, got over 200,000 views in an hour. I had a feeling like I was meant to do this, he said.
Oh, no. Dude.
And then we go, Green's client. Here we go. This is the most damning part of it all.
Okay.
Green's clients have included Disney, Paramount, and Warner Brothers, among others.
Some nice indie art house studios.
January, Universal paid him to create a post at the NFL game promoting the movie Megan that received nearly 7 million views, part of a marketing campaign that helped the film earn $30.2 million in the U.S. and Canada on the opening weekend.
Uh-huh.
This is not a Venn diagram. Once you're being paid to promote new studio releases, you are essentially part of the advertising wing for a corporation.
Yeah.
You are not
You're an advertiser.
a professional film critic whose job is to see and review new movies, to bring exposure to the filmmakers who deserve it and the people who are putting art out into the world and who have an ethical responsibility to see that those people are met with the public recognition that they deserve. Those are not two things that can blend with each other in any way. They are inherently incompatible. And I don't have any false pretenses that these TikTok kids are like the first time anything like this has ever happened. Like, I know that studios have always been bribing critics and sending them shit to give them positive reviews. But that's because there have just been more and more hacks being associated with film criticism over the past however many decades. And the fact that movie bloggers were able to encroach on the space so much and turn it into a realm where there was so many voices all at once that you stopped recognizing which were the voices that held actual authority and which were the ones that were treating art with nuance and with the respect that it deserves. And that gets muddled by opportunists who are just trying to make a quick buck.
So this article, because I've been sitting wondering, this is not an article about reviewers. This is an article about advertisers or, marketers. Like, this is people essentially who are involved, as you said, in the marketing wing of a given movie. And the fact that it's being framed as these are some fun movie reviewers that if you're young and you have, your parents' time subscription and they're like, you see something about, oh, look, my favorite TikTok movie reviewer is in here. You're just going to be like, oh, cool. That, now look how valid they are because they're in this article in the New York Times. Meanwhile, if you, again, are aware of how these studios or any kind of corporation operates, you would be able to see through that and understand this is probably, first of all, paid for by the studios to get these people more visibility and more, like, an article like this probably just does not get written unless, why would this article even be written if it was just like this? It reeks of being promoted by moneyed interests.
Promoting people who will then promote other corporate interests.
Right.
It
all just plays along the same tune.
And are we prepared to address how many more people will be exposed to these TikTok reviews than the peanuts that are given to smaller movies and independent filmmakers outside of like niche underfunded publications that have become diamonds in the rough? I mean, the Kai du Cinema comparison is obviously the most false equivalence that I could possibly think of. But if this is the only exposition that kids have to other people's interpretations of film and they aren't being exposed to people like Siskel and Ebert and film criticism isn't taking up a place in the public realm at all, then again, that's just going to lead to, on an even broader scale than it is already, massive audiences just lining up at the teat of the corporations like they have been forever.
And the thing with those reviewers that you were talking about, I mean, you if you read them often, you were familiar with what they liked, what they didn't like. So if something kind of went against the grain, like if I don't know much about them personally, but like let's say that Ebert didn't like, like romantic comedies. Like generally always whenever one came out that was big, he was like, this is terrible. Like once again, it's just like pandering to the lowest denominator, common denominator, whatever. And then one day one comes out and he's like, this was genuinely a great movie and a fun watch. It's like, oh shit, like, maybe this is worth watching because it breaks the mold or whatever, or it made one of my reviewers who I'm familiar with his opinions and the way that he thinks and I usually agree with him. He finally saw something that, broke genre that or a genre that breaks his normal opinion or something. You would think, man, maybe I should go see this because again, you're familiar with the way they think. And if you respect it, then it's worth, your time. But this is just like, again, it just gets so muddied when money gets involved because you can't take anything they say seriously.
The context of a film critic's opinions and their intellect or, their history with different genres of film or whatever, that's all very important. And that's one of the most satisfying parts of reading certain film writers over a span of time is you get to see how their thoughts evolve and how their tastes change.
Right.
And
That's not just with film too. That's anything.
Yeah.
I mean,
no,
any
of
kind
course,
of like,
of course.
like when Pitchfork gives a rap album a good review, it's like, oh shit, this thing's good. It's like, it's like,
and
stuff like that.
That just cannot take.
Like they have a place.
Yeah.
Even like, absolute fucking like irritating shit to like contrarian shit is like, well, it has a place still, because it's like if they like something, or it gives a barometer on where things are at. And this is just like, it's all over the place. You have no idea what to take from it.
Yeah, it can't take up the same place as like life bloggers or advertisers on TikTok that are just making like 15-second videos. Because like it's not like big professional film critics are on TikTok. Like I've seen screenshots of like Richard Brody when they have him like super up close to the screen, like with his huge gray beard. Like, no disrespect to Richard Brody, I'm not really trying to look at him. And I feel like I feel like people who don't know who he is are gonna go and just scroll right past that.
Sure.
So it's like, you got to know if this is what people are watching. Like, of course, like the masses have never had a strong like artistic relationship to some of the more like art house independent movies that have come out. But there are certainly opportunities to steer thousands of people and to create new audiences for these things and to create new fans for art forms which have really gone neglected in the public cultural sphere for the past like decades or so.
That's interesting though, because like when you say the masses, and this is a very like philosophical argument, because I generally think that people are smarter than you give credit for. There's a very, very easy argument to make, to the contrary. But I think with things that are designed to be marketed to, quote unquote, the masses, of course it's going to be lowest common denominator. That's hard to say. Lowest common denominator slop that is like made to just be appealing at a very base level. It's not going to say much. It's not going to show you much that you haven't seen, because when you appeal to everybody, the way to do that the best is to give them something that they are familiar with and comfortable with, and then nobody will really have an issue with it. That's why Marvel shit is so fucking harmless and so boring. It's
watered down.
Yeah. So when you say that the masses don't like, art stuff, which I know is not exactly what you're saying, but when you say something like that, what really the point is like, we all have different taste, because you cannot make something that's very artful or that has something genuine to say that is going to appeal to a large audience in a way that, a superhero movie would. And that's fine. Like there can be things that are appealing to Lunch Pail Joe or whatever, but like everybody has different tastes, so you can't have that. But then when this happens, where you have reviewers who are supposed to be giving their opinions to, everybody on like, little like, or on like indie movies or something, it's just it loses the point, because again, it's like these movies they're not made to appeal to everybody. So it's just like, you have giant studios then they pay them to put their product in front of you so that you can go out and like, you've now have somebody that you trust who maybe said something good about a movie that you like that not many people know about, and you're like, oh good, I trust them. And then because they're the only person talking about it, like you said, that they're specialized in different things, now all of a sudden they're promoting some big budget thing. It's like, well, I liked what they said about the thing that I liked, and not many people like that. So it's just, I don't know, I think I got there in a roundabout way, but you get what I'm saying. It's just it's a way to manipulate your trust of these people. And again, the whole exploiting a parasocial relationship thing. You trust people that you see a lot of, and especially if you seem to find yourself agreeing with things that they say. So if they can manipulate that and pay them to say what they want them to say, instead of letting people form their own opinions or whatever on things that they genuinely believe, then it just, again, everything just gets muddied like the second that you bring any money into it. So it's very frustrating.
Movies used to be made for like specific niche audiences, and now it seems like studios have entered, like for the past like 10, 15 years, they're like, every movie has to be for everybody. Right. And what everybody likes is superheroes who quip.
That's America.
Yeah.
It's what we want.
So Let's go back to making more movies for more people, and let's have them reviewed by smart folks. Maybe we can dream of a nicer
better world.
future.
Yeah. All right. Well, moving on.
Moving on. Joey Votto
Joey Votto.
raised a very
He's
interesting.
cool. We like Joey
quest-
Votto
we
on this
do.
podcast.
We do like Joey Votto. He raised a very interesting question the other day on the old X, which was,
What's that?
you get an entire year of Major League plate appearances, approximately 650. How many hits do you get? How many walks do you get? How many hit by pitches do you get?
Ouch.
And that question is close to being fun, but it was turned into something a little more of, if you were given a season's worth of
full
at-bats,
600
do
to
you think you could get a
650?
hit?
A hit.
One hit.
So
And I have seen a lot of debate about
there's a lot
this,
of morons who like
and
baseball.
I think it's pretty funny.
Yeah.
And we might even get into a debate
could
on
run
this
into
one.
a
But
home run.
Yeah, you certainly couldn't luck into a home run. Did you see Foolish Baseball's tweet? What he said?
No, I did not.
He said I could get a hit, and he tweeted the Norman Rockwell guy standing up, and it was basically his argument was and I agree with him.
How many position players do you get to face over the course of a season?
We're seeing a lot of plays that should be errors that are being
But you also still have to get
hits.
the bat on the ball.
Well, listen, I have a whole debate here more about getting the bat on the ball.
Yeah. How fast are you? Because you could try to lay down a bunt.
Well, that's the thing is, Melissa. Okay, basically
that's the only caveat. That's the only wiggle room that's in there is bookkeeping. More things are considered hits than errors.
Yeah,
than they used to be. But
exactly.
Anyway, yes, go on.
You could do something like that, and I think ultimately, here's my thought on this.
We should preface this by neither of us played high school baseball. I did not play it, but
actually,
you played high school baseball.
Technically, I was on a team. I was on one of the teams one year, and for context, I mean, the hardest pitcher that I ever faced live, I'd say was probably throwing about 83, 85 or so.
I think I probably saw low 70s when I was
and
at the top end of Little League when I was young. Yes.
And I flew out to left against that pitcher. That was probably 8 years ago or so at this point.
Off.
I think Foolish is right, and I'm also going to put myself in the camp of I could get a hit. And here's why. Assume this is 650 at-bats spread out over the course of 6 months. I am automatically in the lineup every single one of those games, presumably in the 9-hole. I would imagine I'm taking reps with the team in the cages then every day, practicing with them, etc. A few years ago, I went to a team's spring training, and I stepped into the cage and the batting machine, and I took 3 swings against 92. I whiffed at the first 2. I was late, and then I fouled off the third, and then I was done. I had to run or whatever. But with constant training, I think based on those numbers, I think reasonably it's safe to assume that I could train myself to make contact with a pitching machine throwing in the 90s on a somewhat consistent basis within a couple weeks or a month or so. Now, obviously, that is an entirely different world from facing a live human pitcher who is throwing erratically, throwing off-speed pitches, whatever, trying to truly pitch as opposed to just throwing.
Yeah.
And there's no doubt in my mind that I would not make contact with a single pitch in the first, let's say, 6 weeks of the season. Flail around miserably every single at-bat.
Josh Donaldson type beat.
Look like a fool. But consider this. The entire question, I think, depends on your approach at the plate. Because the only chance that I would have going into the box, I know that the pitcher knows that I am the worst hitter to ever step into a major league batter's box, and that realistically the only chance that I have of getting on base is if he walks me.
Right, so he's going to be throwing strikes.
So
pumping the zone,
right.
as
So
it were.
hypothetically, if I didn't swing the bat at all for April or something, maybe I would get lucky and draw a few walks over the course of the season.
Right.
But also any pitcher who walks me is going to want to kill himself. So they're going to pepper me with strikes and try to get me out of the
might even hit you by
batting cages
you, yeah.
soon as possible.
Right.
So how does that change my approach, right? if I know it's going to be coming in hard and over the plate and I'm going to be seeing a lot of fastballs, I can start my swing really, really early, and maybe I could get lucky and rope one base hit out of 650, you know?
Right.
Keep in mind, that is what we're talking about. They don't have to turn me into like a competent 9-hitter or a big leaguer or anything like that. We're talking about 1 for 650. Now, as soon as they start throwing me curveballs, I'm going to cry.
You're done. Yeah.
And but what I would say to that is that also greatly increases the chance of me drawing a walk, because then I could lay off the off-speed pitches, and more often than not, they probably end up outside of the zone. So I think most pitchers probably aren't going to fuck around with me up there. Also, I'm presumably hitting ninth with the leadoff guy behind me. So anytime somebody's on base, I'm going to want to sacrifice myself to get the runner over, and that would increase my chances of getting a dribbler down the line or bunting and having a misplay get ruled a hit.
Right.
If the third baseman starts thinking that I'm going to bunt every time, maybe I could do one of those weird little half bunt, half swings and plop one over his head. Point being, there are many routes to getting a hit in a big league game, and if I'm given the training resources that big league athletes have, which is safe to assume since I'm in the starting lineup every day, I think they could maybe get me a hit by like late August or something.
Right.
I would never be I would be the worst player in the history of the league, and it wouldn't even be close. But is 1 for 650 possible? I think yes.
So I agree with you. And here's the thing. Probably going to call us crazy because, again, the whole, like, you know, I could look into a home run. That's not what we're saying. If you give us lots of time and whatever resources major league, players have to get better at hitting, if we had, don't forget also coaches. If you have access to coaching, I mean, I think you're right. I don't think it would be within 200 plate appearances that you would get one. I don't even think you would get the bat on the ball. You're right. But I do think if I was given, let's say, 6 months, you're right, 6 months with seeing live pitching and working in a cage and working with coaches and having all the VR shit that you have access to, eventually, I mean, like, I will say this. I went into a batting cage last summer, and I had not swung a bat probably in about 3 years, I think. And the last time I'd even swung a bat was with, like, a friend of mine. We went out and we did some batting practice. Thrown what, like 30 maybe, like 40 miles an hour, whatever batting practice. I don't know. We didn't have a gun on us, but like, throwing very softly. And both of us would get some really good swings in. Like, I hit a ball. I'd measured it on Google Earth actually afterwards because I was curious. Genuinely, I was curious. I want to know how far it went.
That's awesome. Like, I'm laughing in support.
I hit a ball 300 feet.
Nice.
Now, that is a very weak fly ball in every single Major League stadium. And when I hit that shit, I was like, oh, my God. I felt like Barry Bonds. Like, I was like, Jesus, that felt good. That was off like a 35-mile-an-hour pitch my friend threw from, in a double-A field, like, by second base that I, cranked to the best of my ability, and it went 300 feet. Mm-hmm. And I think eventually, and this is, by the way, after a while of, we would do this over the summer a few times. So eventually I got to the point where I was able to get some power, quote unquote, behind my swing, and it all felt, good. Now, if you gave me access to all the resources that we've already mentioned, and I was able to ramp up seeing velocities, again, the first week would be a comedy show. I mean, I don't think I would swing after the first 2 games because I know for a fact that in my head I would just be swinging wildly. And the point that I was going to make, I went to a batting cage last summer and was seeing 50 to 55 miles an hour, and I fouled off a few. I got maybe 2 good hits, but at first, I mean, holy shit, I was just throwing the bat at it, some of the worst. My girlfriend recorded it and I watched it back and I wanted to jump off a bridge. It was so
50
bad.
to 55?
50 to 55.
Oh, bro.
And it made me look a fool.
We got to get you back in the cages.
I know, it's been so long. And I used to be a good hitter when I was little, in Little League when I was playing often. And that is enough to make me think if I was given enough time and enough resources and I was able to, really take the time and learn, apply myself and all those things that you say when you want to do something well. It's if you are given the resources and the time, maybe if you are not seeing Garrett Cole or even like I was thinking about it while you were talking about it. Like Yu Darvish is known for throwing like 7 pitches. You know, he has like the fastball, the cutter, he's got the slider, he can drop a 12-6 curveball on you, a beautiful changeup, the whole thing. If you have no clue what they're throwing, you have no chance over 600, whatever. If you had to face Yu Darvish every day, it's not happening. If you got to face a variety of pitchers, like if like maybe there's like a softer tossing lefty reliever who comes into the game at the end or whatever, and he throws like a 88 mile an hour fastball with like a 75 mile an hour changeup or something. If you can learn how to time up like anything around there, and you can sort of get used to seeing something other than just a fastball, you have a chance to get one. Like it's,
exactly.
You have a chance to get one, and I don't think nobody who's walking in off the street and given a year of baseball, like not a calendar year, a season, is going to hit a home run. It's just not going to happen, especially if you don't, like maybe if you played competitive high school baseball at a high level, sure, you might have a chance. College baseball, obviously. But like, your average Joe Schmo showing up who hasn't played since they were, 15 or whatever.
Which is about when I stopped. So this could be me.
Yeah, exactly. So like, I think I actually stopped playing when I was like 12, maybe 13. I do miss it. But there's a great John Boy's thing. I just watched it recently, like the how to score 10 runs in the first inning and lose. They talk a lot about Steve Jeltz. And Steve Jeltz is like, one of the worst hitters, qualified hitters in the history of baseball. And there was this graph that he put up about how he is like in the, like 8th percentile, like John Boy's, of people who have ever played baseball. And Steve Jeltz is like it was like the 99.1 percentile of people who've ever played. Like Barry Bonds at like 99.9 or like 100th percentile of best people that ever play baseball. Steve Jeltz, one of the worst people ever to play professional baseball, is at like the 99.1%.
Yeah.
So It's like, and like the fact that they sign up, like that's what you sign up for when you go into professional baseball. Is like the dudes who are like way down at the bottom of this scale, who have no idea what they're doing, are allowed to criticize you because you enter into the fray or whatever. And that's like, it is very it's fun to remember how talented these guys are.
Puts
and
it all into perspective.
What it would take to actually perform at that level. It's just not a thing that you can show up and do.
Yeah, it's like not a thing that is just like done by people.
Right.
Like, and that's why that's why me even saying yes, I think I could get a hit over the, like, that feels very like naive to say, but I feel like any argument against it just goes against the nature of the hypothetical. Right. Like, I just feel like on sheer
just given them
volume
time
alone. Yeah.
With that much time and being athletic, like you have a chance to get one. And it's not going to come against, Cy Young winners or even like, 5 starters or anything. It's probably like if you would have a chance, it would come against a back-end reliever. Not back-end, excuse me, a bottom-end reliever.
Or like IKF.
Or IKF. But even then, IKF has pitched pretty well.
Yeah, he's all right.
But yeah, it's fun question. I like it.
Me too.
That's interesting. I think I could draw a walk eventually.
That's another thing. If I got hit by the ball, I think I'd retire.
Oh my God, I would cry. I would cry.
Well, of course, but I would cry and retire.
Every now and then, I'll lay on my couch and like throw a baseball up in the air, and every now and then I miss, like to the point where like I throw it too far forward or something, I can't get it, and it hits my leg or something. That shit hurts, and I'm just throwing it up and down. Imagine that's like, I don't know,
getting
8 miles an hour.
Those
things are heavy.
Yeah,
like
man.
a 99 mile an hour fastball in the ribs. I'm gonna scream. Like it's just. Not for the faint of heart. Mainly, I had a Yankee theory that I wanted to get to.
Okay.
And this refers back to a Bob Clappish article that was posted a few days ago. I think NJ.com or something, where he was saying that no matter what happens, there's pretty much a 0% chance that Cashman does not come back. And it's like basically the gist of the article was like maybe Boone goes, but Cashman's definitely not going. And that was like the talk of all the New York media for a while. It was like, Cashman's not going anywhere. What are we doing? Like the whole thing. And I have a theory that this was put out by the Yankees. Not that Clappish was like in on this. I just think the Yankees announced this or like said this. Not even announced. I don't know how I found this out. I'm sure it wasn't like the Yankees press people being like, Cashman's not going nowhere, print it or whatever. But like, I don't know why everybody is like a 60s Italian New Yorker in my scenarios. But
I do that too. It's all right.
Yeah. I have a theory that the Yankees heard the noise that everybody and their mother was saying that nobody gives a shit. Everybody is now rooting for the team to lose because if they lose, it means change. And so they heard that and they're like, well, we can't have our entire fan base rooting against us. That's not good. So maybe if we dampen that down, and we say like, hey, guess what? Even if we lose, nothing's going to change. Maybe they'll be like, well, I guess now we have to root for them to win. Like, because what's your other option then? If you think nothing's like, that's what you wanted them to lose so that things would change. Well, if we tell you nothing's going to change, you'll come back to us. That's not happening. Now everybody's just fucking furious and even more depressed.
And probably jumping ship in a lot of cases.
Jumping ship. And I think that they kind of, if I'm right, which, this is a bit tinfoily, but if I'm right, it completely fucking backfired because people have given up completely on the organization. Now it's like, they're going to be awful for half another decade.
Yeah.
It's like,
No, I've stopped caring.
Everyone's right. Yep. They are going to be terrible for another few years if this continues. And it's just so obvious that Cashman is just a bygone product that is for some reason allowed to keep going. And there's, a lot of people are having theories about Hal not having the stomach to get rid of him, or he just, it's a connection to George and his father and an era that he misses and like doesn't have it in him because it's the only thing that's left of his dad. And it feel like, like spitting on his grave, or maybe even George on his way out said, you can't fire Cashman because he's the truth or whatever. Like, all these things, and people have
sorry,
all these
Dad,
theories.
you're dead.
Like,
guy sucks.
Yeah, at this point, like we are at the point as Yankee fans where people are organizing fire Cashman nights, protest nights like they had in fucking Oakland, like to get rid of this general manager because everyone's just so sick of what we're seeing, and it's just not going to get any better. And people who don't watch the Yankees, they are 500 now. They lost tonight. They're 60-60.
Well, I think that's been it this week for the Mudville podcast. We are going to sign off. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Could you get a hit over 650 plate appearances? Let us know in the comments.
Let Joey Votto know on Twitter.
Yeah. Or us. I mean, we'll listen. If you let us know, we'll listen.
Yeah.
Then we'll talk about it.
If you send us anything, we'll probably respond.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, we do get a lot of people talking to us all the time.
Oh, yeah.
But if you come back at us with anything, we'll bring it up.
We'll see you guys next week.
Have a good one. See you next week.